Welcome to season 1 of the Alcohol Free HSP podcast, where embodied education meets holistic lifestyle for highly sensitive people and their wellness journey through sobriety. I am your host, Gretchen Bergantine, HSP coach and mentor, wellness educator, lifestyle influencer, mom, wife, and 3 years happily alcohol free. Whether you're newly sober curious, or years into your sobriety, this podcast is here to give you the truth about alcohol, the research surrounding high sensitivity, and tools to build confidence in a sustainable lifestyle as you discover what's possible when you stop numbing your high sensitivity with alcohol, nurture your nervous system, and start living the life you're really craving. So grab a cup of coffee or mix up a mocktail and let's get started. In this episode, we will discuss more about the trait of high sensitivity, what it means to be a highly sensitive person or HSP, and how reframing your relationship with alcohol in light of your high sensitivity can help you quit. So what is a highly sensitive person? It is a term coined by the research and findings of Dr. Elaine Aron, who's really a pioneer in the trait of high sensitivity. This is also referred to as sensory processing sensitivity. And it is important to note that high sensitivity or sensory processing sensitivity is not a disorder or a disease, but rather an innate trait that one is born with. And it basically means that our nervous systems are more finely tuned than others. Recent findings estimate about 20 to 30, even closer to 31% of the population identify with this trait, which is good news because earlier findings were about 15 to 20%. So that tells me that awareness is growing about the trait. And I think with the conversations around neurodivergence and nervous system regulation, a lot of people are really catching on to this beautiful and unique trait of high sensitivity. And it's not just us ladies who have it. It is 50% male and 50% female, which is also good news because we need men and their sensitivity to feel supported and held in the collective so they feel confident and comfortable showing up in their trait of high sensitivity. And that really helps us to understand one another better too, when we can understand this unique trait of high sensitivity. A couple ways that you might know that you are an HSP are you can sense the moods of others and you are aware of the subtleties in your environment. I know for me, that is huge. I can feel the energy shift when someone either walks in the room or when they open their mouth or even their facial expressions. So that is one way to know. You pick up on those and we can read a room like a boss. Another way you can identify with the trait is if you often need time alone. This is not just for introverts. I am an ambivert, which means I'm equal parts extrovert and introvert, and I need a lot of alone time. And thankfully, my husband is the same way, and he needs a lot of downtime too and alone time. And we both honor that, and there's no hard feelings. So I think it's really great when you're able to express your needs as a highly sensitive person to your friends and family and loved ones so that they can honor you in your needs, such as having time alone without getting their feelings hurt. Another way you know is if you get overwhelmed easily. And I'll be talking shortly about an acronym that Dr. Aron came up with, but overwhelm, overarousal, overstimulation, I know for me were very big reasons why I actually turned to alcohol. You may struggle with perfectionism. A lot of us highly sensitive people, we are overachievers, we are high achievers, and we don't like to make mistakes, which can also lead into getting nervous while being watched while you work. I remember I hired a coach for some needs within my business, and we had stopped working together, and I noticed that she kept like watching my Instagram stories and watching all my movements on social media, and it made me really uncomfortable because I felt like she was hovering over me, and it was probably purely innocent on her end, but she had told me that she didn't identify with the trait of high sensitivity and she didn't struggle with alcohol use. So I'm like, well, why are you watching me? Stop watching me. You're making me feel like I have to perform for you. So that's very, very, very common for highly sensitive people. You can often feel misunderstood. I know for me, that was a big deal for me. Once I understood my trait of high sensitivity, I really started to understand my life and the relationships and even some of the moms in my son's friend circle. Like, I just remember feeling, with certain circumstances, feeling very misunderstood. Um, and I have accepted that because it's not like I can just, I write it off as, oh, it's just your trait of high sensitivity, but it's a reframe on why I am the way that I am and why I am perceived the way that I am. Um, Overcommitting, we have a tendency to overcommit. It's the people pleaser in us. We find ourselves saying yes when we really want to say no. That's one way to know that you're a highly sensitive person. Also, we are deeply moved by nature or art or music, and we find beauty in the smallest thing. So that's another way to identify. Another thing is, for me, I can absolutely not stand violence or any scary stuff. Like, I can't do the serial killer movies or the TV shows. In fact, I find it interesting. I do know some highly sensitive people who are some of my friends, and they can watch Dexter no problem and like do the gory Halloween stuff no problem. Whereas me, I have to like literally close my eyes and plug my ears. I could barely get through Ray Donovan and the Ozarks watching that with my husband. I had to really be careful about those gory scenes because it just really upsets me and I take it on just like it's my own pain. Um, so those are a few ways that you may identify with the trait of high sensitivity. Some of our characteristics include, but are definitely not limited to, the fact that we are so compassionate. We care about humanity and suffering, and we are very loyal. We are highly intuitive and extremely perceptive. We're also very creative. And I know for me, that is one of the ways that I express my high sensitivity is through creativity and through social media content creation, through art, through music. I grew up playing piano. I've played the piano since I was a little girl, and those self-expression ways, or those way to kind of, um, you know, tap into that inner child and that playtime, like that imagination, is really important for highly sensitive people. We're also very caring. We are extremely thoughtful. We're very kind. We're conscientious, and we're very observant. And I believe that the world needs our sensitivity because look around and it's no surprise that we are living in a world that is very broken. And our sensitivity is really, I believe, a light into this dark world. And when we can tap into and understand our trait of high sensitivity and accept our trait of high sensitivity, that's when we really are able to break out of our shells and lead others in their light and in their high sensitivity. And in a world that is non HSP friendly, we do have to work a little bit overtime on some of the regulation practices with our nervous system and making sure that our needs are met. But when we tap into that, we can really thrive. Um, so, another really great way to not only understand the trait of high sensitivity, but also explain it to others is that acronym DOES that I was referring to earlier. And that's DOES. And again, this is coined by Dr. Elaine Aron, and it's a really good snapshot into the trait of high sensitivity. The D stands for depth of processing. We have such a tendency to think very deeply about things and process information more thoroughly than our non-HSP friends. This can lead to, rumination, replaying past conversations, even that happened, conversation or events that happened, 20, 30 years ago. Sometimes those events still pop up in my mind. So that's D, the depth of processing. The O is for that overstimulation or over arousal or over overwhelm. We tend to become overstimulated by not only the external, but also the internal stimuli. This could be noise, this could be crowds, or even our busy schedules. And we can become overwhelmed and over aroused because our inner world and that constant processing of stimulation really can charge us into overdrive, right? Even something simple and enjoyable, at least for me and some other highly sensitive people, is people watching. It can be really fun, but it can also be overwhelming because we're processing so much, right? We're processing their facial expressions. We're processing, for me, I'm looking at their outfits. I'm looking at how they've styled and accessorized their fits, right? I'm taking in all of that information. So while it's fun and it's good, it's also that um, a lot of that processing of that stimulation, right? The E stands for emotional reactivity or also empathy. So we feel emotions more intensely, both the positive and the negative emotions. And because we are so highly in tune with others' feelings, this can be really impactful and can be something that we really have to, again, know our boundaries and know what's ours to hold and what is not ours to hold. Um, and then the S stands for sensing the subtle. So we have a heightened awareness of the details in the environment, right? Like which I mentioned earlier. This can include noticing small differences in others' emotions or their surroundings. I know for me, when my husband comes home from work, like I know immediately what kind of a day he's had. I know immediately what kind of mood he's in, and that's because we're picking up on all of those clues. So you can really see from this short acronym DOES how our nervous systems can be flooded so easily because we are so finely tuned. We have to be really careful of our environment because of that reason. And when we drink alcohol, this only adds fuel to the fire because what's happening is it's sending mixed messages to our already really fragile nervous system. So, this is why I'm so big on nervous system regulation. So, in my experience, I believe that alcohol isn't necessarily the biggest root problem for those of us that drink, but it is a symptom. I believe that the real problem is nervous system safety. So when we drink, as highly sensitive people, our nervous system is soothing itself in really the only way it knows how, which is alcohol for a lot of us. And that creates a very, very vicious cycle. And personally, for me, I grew up in a household where, my brother's bipolar and schizophrenic. And I grew up talking about addiction and alcohol use and all of that very openly. It was a topic of discussion very comfortably for my upbringing. And I believe a lot of that is because my mom is a nurse. She's a retired nurse, and she was very active in the mental health field. So for me, it was just so easy. But there is a stigma around alcohol and addiction. And even that word addiction makes some people tense up. And I know for me personally, it does too. It can be a triggering word. And yes, it needs to be addressed. But when we remove that and when we focus on the nervous system safety and regulation, for me, it's almost like a full body exhale, right? Because of all of the shame that's associated with alcohol use. Now, there's shame, but it's also the flip side of that is it's so wildly accepted, right? It's so easily accessible to reach for something that is that quick fix, and it's everywhere we look in society. It's the programming is everywhere, whether it's on reality TV, whether it's on commercials, whether it's at children's baptisms, or what's the word I'm looking for? Parties where the mom has the baby. Trying to blank on the word baby showers. That's the word. It's everywhere. And that is all by design because alcohol is designed to kill, steal, and destroy. It's designed to get you hooked, and it's designed to keep you coming back for more. So, yeah, I got a little worked up on that rant because you can see I'm very passionate about this, right? Because I personally never identified as an alcoholic, and I still don't. I identify with someone who was using alcohol to calm my nervous system in the only way that it knew how. And that way just kept me coming back for more, right? Which is what it's designed to do. So that's high sensitivity. And now I want to discuss some facts, a little bit about how alcohol, but I also want to add that I do not treat, diagnose, or exclude or cure any diseases or disorders. I am simply here to educate, to deliver truth, to talk about research, to share what worked for myself and others, and to give a message of hope. Because really, at the end of the day, that is really my soul's purpose in all of this, is to raise awareness not only about the trait of high sensitivity, but also the correlation between alcohol use. So the term alcoholic was actually thrown out, and it's now referred to as alcohol use disorder, which is a good thing for someone like me because of what I just said earlier. I don't identify with the label of alcoholic because I don't want to give my power away to the problem. I don't identify with that. If you do, that's great. That's what works for you. But I also want to add too that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So I don't like to pathologize or necessarily label, but I like to look at this as a framework, meaning when we acknowledge our nervous system as highly sensitive people and how alcohol adds to that dysregulation, it gives us a framework, right? And as they say, you got to name it to tame it. So um, I personally am I wear my high sensitivity trait with a badge of honor, but I also realize that not everyone does, or not everyone is comfortable with being, labeled, or it's not like we want to put ourselves in a box, but rather we want to have that framework so that we have a baseline to go off of, because you have to be able to address your needs. And as highly sensitive people, our needs look different from non-HSPs. And that's something that I'm so big on in educating others about and in helping my clients with, because it's all about that nervous system regulation. So I also want to point out that highly sensitive people, we are more impacted by spiritual crisis and trauma, and emotional burnout. I know COVID did a number on a lot of us with the awakening. However, we are more likely to respond to interventions such as coaching or therapy or healing. And as a result, we can experience post-traumatic growth. So in my work, what I do is, yes, we want to understand our past and we want to, reframe our relationship with alcohol in light of our high sensitivity. But that's why I'm so big on, like, the energy of your future self, because in the field of positive psychology, it states that it's actually our future that pulls us rather than our past that pushes us. So that's really in the coaching world, we want to focus on, moving forward and understanding the past, but moving forward. And we can refer to this post-traumatic growth as spiritual emergence through vantage sensitivity. So, with all of that good news, I want to share some staggering statistics about alcohol use disorder. Again, it's not called alcoholic, it is someone who struggles with alcohol or alcohol use disorder. And in the year 2024, it is estimated that 27.9 million people in the US, about 9.7% of the population, age 12 and older, yikes, had alcohol use disorder. I'm going to say that number again. 27.9 million people. That's 9.7% of the population aged 12 or older had alcohol use disorder. The demographic breakdown of this is 16.7 million males, that's 11.8%, and 11.2 million females, that's 7.6%, had alcohol use disorder. I find those numbers really, really like sad, right? Like it makes me sad. But I'm here to always deliver a message of hope, right? The good news is that the sober, curious movement is totally booming right now. My husband and I went down to San Diego, I guess it was last weekend, and we toured San Diego's first non-alcoholic bar. If you're local to San Diego, or if you're um, headed to San Diego anytime soon, or even if you're not, make it a point to go visit Good News Bar. It's inspired by the song Good News from Mac Miller, and it is to raise awareness of addiction and mental health while also delivering a message of hope. So, yeah, Good News Bar San Diego, highly check it out. But the sober curious movement is totally rising right now. I think for me, and in the work that I do, and in talking with others, 2020 was really like a pivotal moment for humanity and for the awakening around the dangers of alcohol and really around so many things, right? But I think with the alcohol free living movement and the people that are understanding just how dangerous this substance is, there's such hope for our future and our future generation. My son just turned 18 yesterday. So I know he has like I think I've done a really good job of telling him the dangers of alcohol. So I don't think he wants to touch it. But that younger generation, they're not really interested in it. And that just makes my highly sensitive heart so happy. Now, I do want to touch on the fact that there is some research being done on whether or not high sensitivity and alcohol use disorder has any connection. Now, I'm hoping that research gets kind of like amped up on that because I know for me and other highly sensitive people and other psychologists, they do see a connection in alcohol use and high sensitivity because simply the way we're wired, we are constantly processing so much information, both internally and externally. And as I said earlier, alcohol is so acceptable, it's easily obtainable. And so it allows us to relax and soothe our sensitive nervous system in a way that is um, very habit forming, right? And that, of course, leads to what addiction is. And, you don't necessarily want to ask why the drinking. You want to ask, well, why the addiction? Why are you seeking something outside of yourself to calm yourself? And in my work and in my experience and in my journey in breaking free from alcohol, yes, it was getting clear on why I was drinking, but why I wanted to quit, right? When I started to see the programming and the conditioning that the alcohol industry and that society puts on humanity, and then when I started to awaken to how highly sensitive people take in so much of their environment, it was kind of like an FU to the alcohol industry in some ways, to quit alcohol. And I personally have no interest in it. I do enjoy non-alcoholic wine and non-alcoholic beer, and I know that might be, not everybody's choice. But for me, I'm not here to tell you what your alcohol-free journey looks like. I am here to show you what works for me and show you what has worked for others. And only you know your journey with alcohol and how that may look or feel. Um, which leads me to, okay, you may be asking yourself, great, Gretchen, this is wonderful information, but like, how do I actually apply this, right? And how does this look for me? And because everyone's journey in their relationship with alcohol is unique, I'm just here to share resources. I'm here to give you tools to tell you what worked for me and others, and what finally clicked for me and stuck for me after 2 years of trying to quit, being unsuccessful, to never desiring the taste of alcohol again. So it's really your choice. I am here to initiate and lead transformation, but it's ultimately your journey. I did create two programs, excuse me, out of my journey of breaking free from alcohol. The first one is called Stop Numbing the Foundation. And this is really to help you get started in your journey. This is the first 7 to 10 days in breaking free. And you actually can still drink while you're doing this because, well, you can drink while you're doing any of it. That's your choice. But it's really to help you understand and get clear on your drinking habits and your relationship with alcohol and how it relates to your high sensitivity, right? That's where this is different. I did not do AA. AA may work for a lot of other people, and that's so great. It's a wonderful program. For me, I had to, AA wouldn't have worked for me because it would have been too performative for me. It would have just stressed me out even more. But for me, I really wanted to turn internally, and I really wanted to identify with and understand why my high sensitivity was, in my eyes, making me drink. Oh, it made me drink. I deserve this reward. I had an overstimulating day at my retail job. I deserve this wine. I was a single mom for 8 years. I deserve this. I'm just wired differently, right? Like I was never a victim, but I really wanted to know why. And if you heard my first episode, you heard me share my journey and how I found out I was highly sensitive, how I was a highly sensitive person, and then how I learned and made the connection that when my mom sent me that TED talk about the trait of high sensitivity, I happened to be drinking a beer when she sent that to me. And it was a Sunday morning at like 11 a.m. And it wasn't until like a year later that I had that aha moment where I'm like, holy shit, I'm like actually using alcohol because of my sensitivity. But it was like this double-edged sword, right? Like my sensitivity is my superpower. And that's why I say the alcohol is a symptom of nervous system dysregulation. And then when we keep drinking, we're only adding fuel to the fire of this vicious cycle of toxic substance that's flowing through our body. So stop numbing the foundation is where you are dropping the perfectionism. Okay, we're leaving that at the door. You're understanding how your nervous system needs are different, and you're getting clear on why you're turning to alcohol and why you're desiring to quit, and really like listing as many reasons why you're doing this, right? And if you decide to quit, should that be your choice? And really connecting the dots on not only a conscious and unconscious level, but also that subconscious level. Like we have what's called that cognitive dissonance, where um, we want something so badly, but yet we do the opposite in our behaviors and our habits. So we want to connect those two to be in harmony and to understand and to do the things that we say we want to do, and actually have it make sense on a subconscious and unconscious and conscious level. So really this means reframing your relationship with alcohol with the understanding of your nervous system, and rewriting your stories around your drinking habits, and really laying the foundation. This also means in Stop Numbing the Foundation, you'll also uncover what that would look like if you are telling other people about your journey. I know a wellness perspective works really well. Some people, oh, I'm looking to lose weight. Oh, I'm looking to do dry January. Oh, I'm looking to, um, I'm doing it with a friend or whatever. And so really getting crystal clear on what your reasons are for drinking, and if you're going to tell others, if you are going to, how this would impact your relationships, if you're going to share this with your partner, your family, and really just gaining a deeper understanding of yourself. Know thyself, right? That's really kind of the foundation of this too. Like really digging deep within and understanding yourself and your needs, And then after Stop Numbing the Foundation, we have what's called Stop Numbing, Start Living. And this is a self-paced course. It's usually takes about 30 days, and diving deeper into your journey with quitting alcohol, should you choose that route. Typically you do, because you've already laid the foundation. You're crystal clear on your drinking habits and wanting to feel better. And Stop Numbing, Start Living is, it was born out of my journey. It's really a reclamation of what worked for me and how I can pour into the collective and help highly sensitive people in their wellness journey. Well, I know that this was a lot of information that I packed into here. So, in the spirit of not overwhelming your sensitive nervous system, I'll wrap up and say that I would love to chat with you more about this further. And if this message resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, or you can head over to my Instagram and send me a direct message. I'd also really appreciate a review, as this helps others find this message. And until next time, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.